We all have a story, and all Star Wars fans have a Star Wars story. Join James as he talks with a special guest each episode to share their Star Wars story.
Joining me today on the Outlander Club is Din from F-105. Din, how you doing?
Great, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing swell. Just swell is a
Gee,
word I will bring back.
gee willikers.
That's how we should do this whole show, just speaking like they did and leave it to Beaver. But we're not going to. We're going to get in. Din, before we get right into your Star Wars story, why don't you give everybody a Cole's Note version of who you are? Just a little background into Din.
Well, who I am,
A loaded question.
I, my name is Din. I have this band project thing called F-105, and I make songs like Rebel Girl and Desert Planet, Outer Space from the last one, and I am obsessed with Star Wars like everyone here. And I wish I could slam dunk in basketball, but I can't. That's me in a
Most of
nutshell.
us can't. That's you, the man who wishes he could slam dunk a basketball. That's the show. Goodbye. We're gonna hear some of your songs at the end of this show, but this is Outlander Club. This is all about your Star Wars story. And the cool thing is, you are a musician. You do have your band Project F-105. And you do have a lot of Star Wars influences and references in your music. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to start off at how those influences and references got in there. When do you recall the first time, maybe not seeing Star Wars, but being made aware of Star Wars?
Oh, that's a great question for any Star Wars fan, isn't it? Because
everybody's different. Like,
yeah. I'd love to hear yours if you could tell me yours. So I just want to apologize off the bat to everyone. I'm just waking up, but I think I could do this. I might be a little weird. I'm still in that dream state. Okay.
We're going to hear some slurping. It's just coffee. It's just coffee.
Yeah,
Triple
it's
espresso. We're good.
And yawning, like I'm stretching now. Okay, so I do remember, and it's vivid. It's a vivid memory that will never leave. I was probably 4 or 5 because it was just, I think, New Hope or maybe Empire had just came out, but we definitely weren't into Return of the Jedi era. And I was in my cousin's bedroom with my older brother. So they were 6 years older than me. And my cousin had on his desk a TIE fighter, the Kenner TIE fighter.
Mm.
And it just, I guess when you're 4 or 5, you're small. That thing looked huge. And there was something about the look and shape of it. And I could just kind of hear my brother and cousin talking about Star Wars. I don't remember what they were saying, but I was transfixed on this design that took me out there. And that's a real testament to, I think, how George Lucas thought too, and Lucas and McQuarrie. I don't think people realize how much it's visual art that captured people's imagination. Like it's Star Wars is to me the epitome of why it's moving pictures and not a book, or even theater. Like you're literally every frame is a painted composition. I think that's true in Star Wars more than anything, and just that the iconic TIE fighter just took me into that painting, just the toy, and I just had to see the movie.
I think for me it was toys as well. I was born in '81, and I just Star Wars. I said this on a show previous this week. Star Wars has just always been in my life. Like I can't recall a time where it wasn't. But I don't know if it was a movie or a toy that came first. But the action figures definitely are what I guess our generation pulled us in, right? Like they were so, like you said, so visually unique and stunning, and you just wanted to be a part of that world. It's George Lucas had him and McQuarrie, like you said, they hit something, and then you add the music of John Williams, and all of a sudden it goes
Right. Could
wild.
you
So did
imagine? Like, I always think that, like, if time doesn't exist and, there really is whatever this afterlife, or, like, I would imagine that I would have picked this time to be born. Because you imagine living life without Star Wars?
I know.
Like, I just figure I must have purposefully asked or
Yeah.
planned to be born in 75 just to be there for Star Wars in 77, because I don't think life would be worth living without it.
I know it's weird. It's wild to think about that. There was, thousands upon thousands, millions of years without That's why the dinosaurs went extinct. There was no Star Wars.
Yeah,
Nothing to
they were
keep them
like
going. Yeah.
they were like they just lost their will to live, like
Yeah.
Padme.
All right, let's get what. Okay, so it was a TIE fighter.
This is the problem with early interviews. Yeah.
We're going deep. All right, so you saw the toy. What do you remember the first toy that was given to you that you had? After seeing it, did you get a toy right after that TIE fighter, or did you have to wait until you were older or saw a movie? Like, what led you down the path further into the Star Wars? I don't even know what the psychotic nature of Star Wars that it kind of did to all of us in those times.
I don't remember. I think I was 2, because I would have been 77, so I would have been 2. So I think I was really kind of too old I was still too young to want figures. You know what I mean? 2 and 77. So I've never thought about this, but my first memory of figures were getting them, the ESB ones, for Christmas.
Nice.
That year. So that must have been 80. And I do have pictures of between my little brother and I don't know whose was what, but there was an AT-AT in the picture, and the play set with the Rebel gun, that shoots at the AT-AT, the gun tower that shoots at the AT-ATs, and the Death Star too. That Death Star play set, with the Vader throne in it, and the triangle. So I had lots. I come from a big family. Half my family, big Greek family. So there was lots of people who bought a Star Wars presents. It was great.
That's awesome. Most of my Star Wars toys, I think, were bought for me, but it might be even close to half and half. Where I was, like I said, I was born in '81, and I had a lot of older cousins, like not older, but a few years older, and I would get their hand-me-downs as well. So any figure that came out, I just ended up kind of lucking out and having at some point, because like, well, this guy's too old for this one now. You get it, James. Like, yeah, they'd be missing an arm or whatever, but
yeah,
it was like
never their lightsabers.
No, nothing good. But okay, so you did all that. Now you are, in '83, Return of the Jedi comes out. You're now 8 years old, 8 years old. Did you see this movie in the theater?
1 second. That's a lovely story. I just realized my mouth, the microphone wasn't pointing at my mouth. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. This is a great way to wake up, though. Talk Star Wars. Yeah, I was working on a secret project yesterday that I was all hyper about, but we can't talk about that. But that's where I'm at this morning.
We'll have you back on to talk about that top secret project, because you gave me a little bit of info on it, and it sounds like it's gonna be fun.
All right. So '83. this is like a life-changing moment, like a life.
Oh,
yeah. So great questions. So I do somehow. I don't know what we had, but obviously I was familiar. At this point, we had a video at least of A New Hope, and my little brother and I had watched it so many times, a VHS copy of some sort, that when we would go to sleep, like we shared the bunk beds in the same room, to go to sleep, we would each try to remember every line of A New Hope and do the dialogue of the whole movie of what came next. So between the two of us, we kind of could get through the whole movie. And then so I begged parents to take us to see Return of the Jedi. I remember, well, this is a bit of the only way I could tell this story is to be honest about it. Like any relationship, some last forever, some don't. So my dad and my mom were going through. I guess this was the start of the divorce process at the moment in time, and I just remember that I cried when so three moments in the movie stuck out that would last forever. The one was when Luke did the badass flip and lightsaber catch and took care of business on the Sarlacc pit.
Oh yeah.
That was that moment. I was just like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to wear all black and be badass like Luke. So that's why I still wear all black on stage. And then I cried when Yoda died.
Wow.
I remember I was tearing up and I was trying to make sure that my parents and my brothers couldn't see. And then the third was I knew that my dad was going through a bit of a tough time. It was really hard on him. This moment in time that we were in, I won't go into that, but I remember having this feeling at the end when Luke kind of saved his father, and his father kind of when Luke being there for his father is what led me to realizing that I had this connection with my father and would be there for him, and that sort of lasted forever. Through my dad's tough times, and then eventually when I was going through like a really major bad clinical depression in my late 20s that hit out of nowhere, my dad was there for me. So that kind of moment in Return of the Jedi, I just remember thinking this is special, and this is special to me somehow, like Luke and his dad, and Anakin. Yeah.
Did you watch it with your father?
Yeah, like in the theater, in that moment, I remember looking at him going, yeah, I get it. Like, it wasn't like I consciously framed a sentence, but it was like, yeah, I get this thing between Luke and Vader. Yeah.
So it had a different impact on you than it would have, like, me when I watched it for the first time, because it had a meaning to you that might have even been the point that Lucas was going for.
Yeah, I think yeah, because I do recall him coming across a quote of his maybe about 10 years ago when he started to really now 15 years ago when he started to really get back into Star Wars and doing all the interviews. He said it's only our children, like people, no one could get through to Vader, but only his son could. And then he seemed to be coming from a personal space where he was saying it's our kids that can get through to us. Yeah. So I think he was really talking about himself and where he was at after his divorce with Marcia, and his kids, and becoming a father again, and then I really just that was intentional by him and definitely affected me that way.
Were you okay with that being the end of the movies at that point in time, or were you looking for more? Like, were you satisfied at that time?
Well, I think on a deeper level, I think everyone was satisfied because Lucas ended it right. You get the what Tolkien calls the eucatastrophe. He coined a term, so like the opposite of catastrophe, but it meant the sudden turn of events to good. But he also meant that there was like a soul healing feeling to that type of ending in fantasy, and a consolation, he called it, something that consoled you. And I think because of that, we all had a satisfaction on an emotional, psychological level, though we wanted more. But I think I was too young to think. I think I just assumed more was coming, and then it just seemed to take forever. It's like at that age, I wasn't aware of the interviews, him saying I'm done with Star Wars. It was just, didn't hit until I was a teenager, and I was like, wow, we haven't had Star Wars since '83. When is that coming? Yeah.
Were you too old for the Ewok and Droid cartoons?
Oh, that's good because you did. That's right. That would be when I realized I wanted more movies because I didn't feel satisfied by that stuff.
Yeah, I was like, I'm a bit younger than you, so that was, for me, that was perfect, right? Like for my, but in the age, it's definitely not Star Wars, is what I'm saying. Like it's great for kids to watch and enjoy, but it's not Star Wars. And the older you get, the more you realize, even though now we can look back and the retro feel and whatever, but it's not even like Clone Wars is Star Wars, but
right, that's how I
Star
felt.
Wars.
Yeah, when I saw Clone Wars, it'd be like, wow, if I would have been in heaven if I had this in that era when I was a kid. I mean, there was no lightsabers, there was none of the mythological underpinnings. And
if you watch Droids, it's pretty wild how much stuff they've used from droids in the prequels and Kylo Ren. And
okay, I'm gonna have to revisit it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, be cautious. Boba Fett shows up in it. It's pretty. It's very like subtle things, and you could like it's just people who've worked on Star Wars worked on it, so some things show up in there. But like you said, excuse me, there wasn't Star Wars for a while. Man, I'm choking. There wasn't Star Wars for a while. You're 8 years old.
Using the Force.
You
Force choking
me through the online.
Yeah, just practicing, just seeing if my chops.
It's working.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna take it too far.
You're going through now. You hit high school. There's no Star Wars, and you say you realize, we haven't had Star Wars for a while. Did you get into any of the novels? I know earlier you said, Star Wars is a visual medium and all that, but did you get into the novels? Because that Tron trilogy was so massive in the early '90s. Were you into that, or did you kind of bypass that?
Of course, yeah. So there was the Heir to the Empire. I got that pretty. It must have been pretty like close to when it was released because I was super excited about that and read that, and that felt like Star Wars to me. That the tone of it was somehow right. The tone just really felt like Star Wars, and I loved it. And that's when I was like, oh man, this stuff needs to be on screen.
And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was younger, so just perspective. You read this book, you're like, this needs to be on screen, and then there's no, like, there's not even talk at that point of it being on the screen. How does that hit you as a fan? Do you just want more books, or are you like, hey, somebody light Lucas's pants on fire, let's go?
Yeah, that's exactly what it did. That's exactly what it did. It made me. It was like, we need Star Wars on screen again because this is how awesome it can be.
Did you get into Shadows of the Empire?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I love that whole multimedia experience too.
I'm curious, as a musician, did you get the soundtrack? Were you interested in that at all?
No, I wasn't. So at this point, what year was that, Shadows?
I think it was like 96-ish. Give or take a year or two.
So 96, that was my dark times. That was my like 2 year. That was like, I had 2 years between high school and art college where I don't know what I was doing. They're like
trying to find yourself.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of I think I was on on Kessel exploring the spice or something for a couple of years. That's all a blank to me then. So
Shadows of the Empire is great though, like you said, a multimedia event, but that really from what I've heard, that was kind of like the George Lucas's test to see if Star Wars would work again, if people were interested in Star Wars on a larger scale than just Heir to the Empire. So now we're coming to 20-year anniversary of the OGs, of the original trilogy. Do you buy tickets opening day? Do you care? Is this still part of your dark times? Where are you at when they announced this? And
what year was that?
97.
Okay, so yeah, that could have been what brought me out of my blurred years. So yeah, I got opening tickets and I saw all three of the special editions in the theaters, and I was just on fire for Star Wars again. And my by that point, my obsession was lit up even more than it was when I was a kid.
What
Yeah,
did
I
you
think
think
I
of the
loved.
additions?
Well, I loved everything, but even then, it was just the big thing that stuck out was like that Jabba. That's all I remember is thinking that looks like a piece of that looks like a that looks like just like sorry, I can't say the joke on air.
I see. I was 16 at the time, and I loved, or 15 or 16. I love seeing Jabba on the screen. Like, I know it didn't look great, but I was okay with it just because it meant that I got to see Jabba the Hutt again. That's where I was at on that.
Yeah, I felt the same too. I mean, I was happy to see him. I just was at an age. I mean, I was 97. I was applying to go to art school, so I was
Yes,
visually minded and just going.
a little skeptical on that. When Han Solo steps over the tail, you cringed. I bet.
You know, I didn't. I still don't mind that. I think they did that well. It was just Jabba didn't. It wasn't his shape. Like it just wasn't really Jabba.
They changed them in 2000 or in 2010. They've changed his look a few times in that special edition,
Yeah, it
which is
keeps
fine.
getting better in the special edition, but it's still not as good for some reason as the CG Jabba in Phantom Menace. I don't know why. The Phantom Menace one just looks.
Well, he's
But
younger and trimmer.
yeah, but still, it's fine. It works for me. It works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So you saw,
I think it's about the texturing. Like I just think they weren't, and the lighting. Like I
yeah.
think if they were to
Well,
retexture it and light it now, it would look perfect.
yeah, the technology wasn't quite there when they
Yeah.
did it in 97. So they probably were working on it like 95, 96.
Mm-hmm.
But you see those movies, you get tickets, you watch them all. They reinvigorate your love for Star Wars. All of a sudden, George Lucas says, "Hey, I'm making prequels that are going to tell the story of Anakin Skywalker." And he comes out and he talks about writing on his yellow notepad, and it's all everyone's like, "Yeah, he's coming back." Do you remember when you first heard that? Did you have a reaction to that? And I also have to ask you about the trailer. When the trailer dropped, where were you? Is what I'll just say, or just ask.
Okay, yeah. Well, I do know where I was when I first saw the trailer, but in terms of the announcement and all the web stuff, I do remember I had uh, I had been given basically a room in the basement of a church, which was because I worked for sort of like a youth group with the church, and the head minister. He was such a cool guy, Father Norm Roberts. He was like, well, if you lead we'll call it art ministry, you lead like a weekly art thing with youth, I'll give you the space to do that, and you can also use it as an art studio while you're in college. So that was like sort of right off the bat. And we had a little computer in there that was connected to the church had internet. And so I do remember sort of like waiting 2 hours for the little videos to download and then watching them. So that was my first experience of the internet, and its excitement was actually tied to that era of Star Wars. Like
It's incredible that a 2-minute trailer took everybody that I knew downloaded this trailer all day.
Yeah, but even before that, there was like those little web things and announcements that I was just trying to load up on that computer. And that's what made me excited about the internet, was getting Star Wars news and like the early websites. Like, what were the early sites that we had? There was StarWars.com.
Yeah, I was on my college years. I was on the Force.net.
Yeah, that was the first. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big one. That one ruined Attack of the Clones for me. We'll get to Attack of the Clones in a little bit. So you see the trailer. What went through your mind when you saw that trailer? Like, it's one of the best trailers ever made. But what went through your mind when you saw it?
It is. That trailer is a masterpiece trailer. I just remember being in a bar, in a pub, just having some food and a pint with two of my good friends, and seeing the trailer played, like in a sports pub. So the trailer was being played on one of the screens, so we didn't have sound.
Oh,
but
that's not cool.
the one image, but it did. You don't need it because like
Yeah.
George Lucas's visuals sell you on everything, and I just remember thinking the shot that is in my head was Obi-Wan flipping in the Naboo plasma room, from level to level, like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn flipping, like chasing Darth Maul. And I thought, wow, that looks exciting. That's my memory of the trailer in the bar.
That's awesome. That's a good memory. That's Trump's mind watching Entertainment Tonight. Did you see the movie right away? Did you wait in line outside the theater for it? How was your first experience watching The Phantom Menace?
I think maybe that was the only Star Wars movie since they started coming back where I didn't see it sort of opening night. I think I just didn't have the skills or know how, and I was really busy with school at that point. I was so busy with art college, and I did see it opening week with actually I was there with Norm Roberts, who I mentioned, and my friend John, best friend who taught me guitar when I was 15.
Nice.
And I remember we saw it all together, and I loved it. I absolutely was blown away by The Phantom Menace. Had no problems with it whatsoever that other people had.
I got to ask you this because I was with you on that. I love that movie. It was my favorite Star Wars movie at the time. But one of the things that I read going into it was how annoying Jar Jar was, and I was still a teenager, and you would have been in your 20s. So, like you took to Jar Jar is what I'm asking. How like that seems unusual for someone of that age.
Yeah, I have no recollection of not taking to Jar Jar. I don't know if I took to him.
He just didn't throw you off.
I think my feeling was that's the part that's for kids, and that's what Star Wars is. Like, in 1983, it still doesn't make sense to me that people didn't like Ewoks or were against Ewoks. I'm like, I don't get it. It's fantasy for kids. So I never I still don't get what people want. And it's the one, like, when Star Wars tries to be too cool and it doesn't have stuff for kids, I start to feel like I don't get it. Like, the Porgs made sense to me because I was like, yeah, so I didn't have anything against Jar Jar. I don't think he connected with me, but I was just like, yeah, that's the part for kids.
Yeah. So yeah, you just kind of accepted him for being a character within this movie that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Now you have to wait 3 years until Attack of the Clones. Like we said, you are older. You have full access to the internet. What do you do with your time in those 3 years? Do you prepare for Star Wars? Do you forget about Star Wars? What does young Din do?
What does Din do? I think so. A lot. Your perceptions changed over that 3 years because that was an insane 3 years of Star Wars fandom, and you got to see it online. So, and it was new. You never saw the arguing or the hate before. So I do remember some of the criticisms after 3 years started to affect me. Where then at this point I was questioning the CGI feel. I think a perception started to change my perception on the Phantom Menace, and I did start to want. I think some part of me wanted to start to see something that felt a little more like the OT, which is not where I'm at now. I love the Phantom Menace, so I was ready for something that got maybe a little darker and a little more adult, and Attack of the Clones delivered on that for me. I absolutely loved it the first night I saw it. Yeah, that was premiere night too.
So you went premiere night, and you loved start to finish. You were all in on Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, and it all happens so quick. Like you don't really like with a lot of Star Wars movies, you don't start to notice things that you can nitpick or be critical of until after a few viewings.
Which is
And
fine. It's just fine. Like you don't go into a movie opening night to nitpick, right? Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
reason you're there, the second you can see it is to enjoy it, right?
yeah,
And I think, and it's fair later on to
yeah.
do it,
You're
but I
not
think that
going to like, I want to have a negative experience.
well, nowadays with Twitter, people might be doing that, but back then, no. Like when you go opening night, you go because you love what you are very excited for what you're going to see, and Attack of the Clones, maybe for all of its faults, it's enough to sustain that and for you to enjoy it. And then later on, you're like, oh, maybe this, maybe when you start to like really think about it. And that's true of any movie, really. Like the minute you start breaking it down in your head, you're like, oh, you know what? And sometimes that that can ruin a movie. Like sometimes maybe just don't think about it too much. But opening night, obviously, you go there because you love it. Do you remember where you were when the title for Attack of the Clones was announced? Do you remember hearing the title announcement?
I think I heard it online, and I do remember my feeling, which was that is a Star Wars title. Yeah, I loved it.
I remember getting that phone call. I was like, "Oh, that's an intriguing choice." Now
I
you're
thought it
getting,
was. I thought it was. To me, it made sense. At the Empire Strikes Back.
yeah,
Now
oh yeah,
the
it's right up there.
clones are attacking. It just made sense to me.
Eh,
I do want to add that what I was taken by opening night with Attack of the Clones was that as a person in my young 20s, um, and I don't care who you are, but any young early 20s male who thinks they have their psychological act together is lying. And and I just was really taken by Anakin's psychological journey, and I thought this is speaking to me in a way that nothing else does. Yeah, that was great.
So those two Lucas moments that connected with you at pivotal times in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. But now you have to go 3 years before the next one, and it's crazy how when you're a kid, 3 years is 3 years. But now you're getting older, and 3 years is more than 3 years now, right? 3 years it goes by a lot faster, but a lot more happens in that time, and you become maybe a different person. And now you go from Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith. Were you as pumped to see Revenge of the Sith? Did you find? I mean, you loved Attack of the Clones. Were you more excited for it? Like we know what's happening now. We're like, okay, we're getting Vader. It's happening. Where did you stand on Revenge of the Sith? And again, opening night, were you there?
Yeah, I was there opening night. I just like to, I haven't thought about this yet, but I'm just so glad that agony of waiting for the entire first half of my life is over. Like the agony of waiting until I was 20 to see the start of Anakin's journey and then another 9 years to see the end of his journey. Like it was just Revenge of the Sith was such a relief. It's like, oh my God, I don't have to wait again my entire life, And then when they announced the ST, you had to go through that again to see what happened to your childhood heroes, Luke, Han, and Leia. And there was that agony, and I'm just glad all that agony's over, and now I could just enjoy Star Wars without having to feel like every day is painful to wait to know what happens. But I do remember sitting in the theater, like first off, the 3 years between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is agonizing as it was to see how Anakin would finally fall to Vader. It was so fun with the Tartakovsky miniseries.
So good.
With the Republic comics, with all the books that were telling Anakin's, slow psychological sort of descent into the dark. And that stuff really was exciting and it was fun. And so by the time Revenge of the Sith came, I'm like, I'm ready to see how this story ends. And right from the start, like when the main title ends and you start to pan down to Coruscant and you hear boom, 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 boom. I'm like, ooh, this is new for John Williams. He's on fire. Like I could just tell he was inspired. Like this is a new He's letting just a simple beat create tension about what's about to happen, and then boom, 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 and then dun, 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 and you see that crazy 20, that crazy couple minute one shot of Obi-Wan and Anakin starfighters in the battle above Coruscant, and I'm like, Lucas and Williams and everyone, they're on fire. This movie's going to be awesome. Like, you could just tell right from that opening shot.
And did it let you down at all?
No. I still think Revenge of the Sith is the greatest work of modern art of the last 30 years. In anything. Really? There's nothing that compares. Whoa, what? I don't even get the criticisms of that movie. I'm like, how are you going to hold anything beside that movie, and how is it not going to be completely crushed by it? Like, visually, story-wise, sonically, like, it's like freaking Shakespeare in space. Like, it's like the lava set that they built is like installation art, better than any installation art piece you'll see in any gallery. The visuals of that movie, like the ballet of the sword fight, the pathos of Order 66, all the different planets, Mustafar, Utapau, Kashyyyk. I don't see how anything could stand beside that movie and not be completely crushed by it. So and I think what we're starting to see now in pop culture is all the people that grew up with that movie are like, that's the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. We do.
Time is the only thing in art that allows objectivity. Time is it. No opinion about when art comes out can tell you, but it's the stuff that lasts, that everyone starts to agree on, is amazing. Then it becomes objective. Yeah.
We do
ESB is objectively great. And I think Revenge of the Sith is that too. Like, sorry, I just got to finish that thought. Okay. After 40 years, all of humanity can agree that ESB is objectively a great work of art movie. And I think Revenge of the Sith is that as well.
Well, to your point, we do a ranking Star Wars show every January 1st. It's just for giggles. Like, it's not, we don't, it's not, this is the be all. Well, it is the be all end all list, but we don't take it too seriously. We have fun. And we have like 30 people or so submit their list, and we add them all together. And I do all the adding. And I can tell you, the younger the list maker, the higher Revenge of the Sith is on that list all the time. It never fails. It never fails.
And it's always going to be like that. New audiences are going to find that too. It's just us older people that grew up with sort of an expectation of what Star Wars can be. We're the only critics, and when we die, that critique is gone with us. No, like, it will. It'll be gone completely.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. My friend, his son is 9. I think when he was 7, they had on TV, they have around Christmas time, I think they have like the marathon. They always put on all the Star Wars movies. And he fell asleep on the couch, and when he woke up, his son was watching Revenge of the Sith. And he hadn't seen the Star Wars movie. I think he had only seen, I think it was only Rise of Skywalker he had seen at that point. Like, he hadn't really seen a lot of Star Wars. And he sat there, and he loved Revenge of the Sith. And he was 7 or 8 years old. Just loved Revenge of the Sith, was enthralled in it. Couldn't keep his eyes away. So.
There's something, the tone of that movie is just, it's just such a work of art. And it's so grand. Like, Star Wars will never be that again. Like, it'll be 100 years before there's another visual artist on this planet who can make something that is that visually stunning. Like, it's just beyond movies, it's beyond visual art. To me, this is my personal opinion. And I'm actually not the A-list art critic Camille Paglia, who's also known as sort of, she's older now. She's like one of the original feminist art critics, like from 60s and 70s. And that's when she grew up. And she wrote a book called Glittering Images. She was hired to write a book on the 100 greatest works of modern art for the last 30 years. And she actually has the same opinion of me as me. Right. Where she got to what she had to pick as the number one work of modern art. And she couldn't pick one from the visual arts. She's like, nothing holds up to the masters. There's nothing. And she has always loved George Lucas, and she had the Sci-Fi Channel on, and Revenge of the Sith came on, and she was like, this is the number one work of art. And she kind of like really upset the art world, the elite visual art world with that, but she chose Revenge of the Sith as the number one. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Like, this is how significant it was when I was in art college, even before Revenge of the Sith. We're around Attack of the Clones era. I was in an art history class, and it was in a big auditorium. It was a huge class at OCAD University, and the instructor was saying, if Michelangelo were alive today, he was showing us slides, he'd be like using CGI technology, wouldn't he? And I put up my hand and I said, sir, he is alive today. His name's George Lucas. And
how'd that go over?
The teacher actually, to my surprise, went, you've got a point.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. George, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about the sequels and the Disney era. We're not going to, critique them at all. But George,
we're not going to get no fight about the Rise of Skywalker.
We're not going to. No, dude, that's not what. That's not what this is about, though. What this is about is, but like, George Lucas was something special, and you're saying that, and it's true, and look, he's not involved in Star Wars anymore, but George Lucas was definitely something special. And who knows when we'll see that again? As talented as a lot of these filmmakers are, they're not. George Lucas wasn't a filmmaker. Like, I watched an interview with Richard Dreyfuss the other day, and he goes, "Well, George Lucas hated it." He's like, the only director I ever worked with who hated directing. But he was such a visionary. Like, everything around it, though, he understood more than anybody else ever could.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's especially on the power of what the medium was. I mean, I put it this way: if I'm going to say a sentence and it's not going to sound out of place, so I'm going to say Homer, Shakespeare, the Beatles, Picasso, George Lucas.
Oh, I think the order's a little out of place because Picasso is a little bit older than the Beatles.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'm not saying. So my chronology was weird, but it does, like, his name fits.
Yes.
Like, and there's only a few, and this is beyond just cinema. It's about art in any medium and who gets to that level. And George is at that level. Not saying other stuff isn't great and masterpiece, and significant and amazing. It's just, in humility, as an artist and musician myself, I just have to look at George Lucas and say, I'm not there, but that guy's there. And try to learn from it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was all. But then, you know what? After Revenge of the Sith, he said, "That's it. No more Star Wars. The movies are done. We're done. No more.
We're done."
And he kept saying it. TMZ is like, "Hey, George Lucas, Star Wars." He goes, "No, I'm done. No more Star Wars. Done. And then, he'd be like, "Yeah, I have an idea. I'm done. But then the Clone Wars comes out. They introduced this character called Ahsoka, which everybody hated. Do you remember learning about Ahsoka? Did you hate Ahsoka? And what point were you all in on the Clone Wars?
Premiere night, I went and I was excited. At this point, you have to understand that as someone who is now out of art school and in my first few years of practicing as a professional musician and artist, I do have a particular bias towards admiring and respecting and understanding Lucas's willingness to experiment and do the things that scare the crap out of him, to try something new, to find something. I've learned personally by this point that the only way you find something is taking the big risks. And so there I am on premiere night. I already think Revenge of the Sith is a masterpiece and one of the greatest works I've ever seen. And there I am on premiere night. And I just adored Ahsoka as soon as she got on screen. And I felt lit up by the joy of it. I'm like, okay, so Revenge of the Sith, wow, that was great work of art. But wow, such a downer, really, because of what happened. But here we are in this moment where we have joy and light again with Anakin and Star Wars in general and the colors. And my big takeaway after coming out of that premiere was
that wasn't it, but that will become greatness. Whatever George Lucas is doing with that, it's going to eventually become greatness. It wasn't greatness yet, but I knew it was going to become what season 3 became. Like I couldn't picture season 3.
Yeah.
But I knew his experimentation. I was like, that could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think putting the 4 episodes as a movie was, I mean, it was a cash grab ultimately by the studio, I guess. But the show went on to become, I think, something like you said, like it became something great within Star Wars. As Star Wars is now, like characters from the show are popping up in live action. Who 10, 13 years ago would ever have thought that would have happened? Like these characters are beloved and they are getting their own spin-off shows in live action and more animation with them. And then in 2012, Disney buys Lucasfilm and they announced 789 and Clone Wars is dead. They stabbed Clone Wars in the heart
and all
and
of
they
us
watch it. Yeah, and everyone goes down with it. And it's very Shakespearean. But the promise of 7, 8, and 9 is there. Were you accepting of the Clone Wars loss with the acknowledgement of 7, 8, and 9? Did that play out at all?
That was a dirty trick by Disney. Because I was feeling both the elation and the euphoria of knowing that Luke and Han and Leia were going to come back, but I was not happy with the cancellation of the Clone Wars. I was excited about Rebels, and Rebels was great, but I was not happy about that. So I was part of the Save the Clone Wars campaign and wrote Lucasfilm and all that. Yeah.
Well, they worked eventually, I think. The Disney like I said, we won't get into much, but I think the Disney acquisition really, when they bought it, and they specifically the Star Wars branch of it, I don't think they fully understood what they had on their hands. I don't think they fully grasped what Star Wars had become at that point.
No,
and I think over time they've learned. They might not still fully understand because I don't know, like it, but I'm glad you agree because I don't think they understood what they had. And now I think we're seeing that they're like, oh, okay, there's more to it than just, Luke and a lightsaber.
Well, I have some behind the scenes official confirmation of that. So at the time in like that first year of the Disney sale, someone we all know whose name I can't mention, who is heavily connected to people that make Star Wars and movies in general on that level, said to me that he was like, you're not going to see anything PT for a long, long time, because he said everyone at Disney is of the older generation and they hate the prequels and they love the OT. And he said, you're just not going to see anything prequel.
Yeah. And that's how it was. They got rid of the pod racing flags and the Force Awakens. Like a subtle little thing like that.
Whoa, what was that?
In the trailer for The Force Awakens, there were flags on Maz Kanata's castle, and there were flags from the pod race scene in the Phantom Menace. And when the movie came out, they were not there. They were there, but they didn't have the pod racing. The flags were different or whatever. So
okay, what the bleep? And on and on another level, bleep, because this is something in Star Wars that I don't know. So I didn't know there was something.
That happened.
I didn't know. That is B.
Now you hate the Force. Now you're like, well, the whole sequel trilogy is dead to me.
Well, no, I love the Force Awakens, but it's that kind of stuff that was like, when you fast forward to Solo, which I loved. I still love. I think it's maybe the most charming Star Wars movie. It's just so fun and charming. But it's not like a groundbreaking work of art, but it's really charming.
Yeah, it's an underappreciated Star Wars movie. It's just a fun little side adventure, which it is. It's a side quest, spin-off book that we would have picked up in the library and read. That's for me. That's what it felt like, and I love it for that.
But when it didn't do well at the box office, and then Last Jedi did exceptionally well, and there was to me, the more I watch it, the more I see prequel and Clone Wars love in that movie. Um, the I just remember saying to my friends, I'm like, this is the moment when you're going to start to see prequel stuff, because they thought Han and Lando were going to be the buzz things, especially Lando, because Danny Glover was obviously amazing, and Alden Ehrenreich was even more amazing in my opinion. Like, to pull off Han is very hard, and I think he did. Um, but I'm not saying that Danny Donald Glover's wasn't amazing, because it was, but Lando's not as big of an icon as Han and Harrison Ford. So for Alden to pull off a good Han and Harrison Ford, I think was really, really super tough, because he had to live up to that huge megastar of Harrison Ford. But I remember saying, you're going to see a lot of prequel stuff because Darth Maul is buzzing, and that movie didn't do well financially, and all of us, I think the stockholders are going to start to realize, hey, we can make money off that prequel era, and this OT thing that you're doing isn't, like, they're just going to start to say, where else can we make money? And all fingers are pointing towards including more prequel stuff.
Well, the 5-year-olds that saw the prequels are now 20, 25-year-olds, and that's who's paying your bills. That's what they want to see. When we were going in, we wanted to see what we wanted. Now they're going to see what they want, and they're going to drive it. And yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think they understood what they had, and I think they really didn't understand how. And George Lucas said it to Ahmed best, right? When people hated on Jar Jar, he said, "Don't worry, in 20 years they're going to love you. The kids will be older, and they're going to love you." And that's exactly what happened. George Lucas, well, we've already talked about him to death today, so we won't go anymore. But he knew what he was doing. You can't say he didn't know what he was doing.
The best thing I have to say, when I absolutely fell in love with Jar Jar, there was a moment where I fell in love with him and Ahmed. When Ahmed came out and said how he got suicidal because of the backlash, and then he said, and you know what? Then I realized it was time to tell white people, it was time for them to stop telling a black guy how to do his job. And I realized, for the past 15 years, it was all white people who were saying this was a racist character. And now here we have a black guy saying, well, actually the racism might be that you're all white and telling me how to do my job. That was my character.
That's a great point.
And then I was like, Ahmed and Jar Jar are the most badass thing in Star Wars ever, next to the Ewoks.
Ewoks and Jar Jar are two of my favorite things in Star Wars. So
well, the Ewoks are subversive, right? They're like the native tribe that didn't have to be saved by the white heroes. They were like, they saved the heroes.
Yeah, it's great. We're gonna slowly wrap it up. We're running out of time. You hated The Last Jedi and you love Rise of Skywalker. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You just now you're gonna really force choke me. No, but you absolutely love The Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker, we don't need to get into.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I have to say that personally, there are reasons why I will never like that movie, because on an emotional level, there's no intellectual thing that I can say to convince myself to like certain parts. But I do think that movie is a great ending for a younger audience, especially females. And that's like, it's like a reboot of Return of the Jedi for an audience that's not me, and I'm fine with letting those other people have it, and it's great for you.
That's fair. I think that's the downfall of the entire sequels, is all three of them are retreads of the originals. And I know poetry, it rhymes, but I wish they didn't handcuff themselves to 3 movies, really, is ultimately, I think. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about your Star Wars story. So the sequels have come and gone. ShiVP has a granddaughter, something Dark Side. It all ends. All of us end. But as it's ending, we are now knee deep in this, in the first live action TV show called The Mandalorian. How are your feelings on The Mandalorian? Because I know this is a little complex. So we only have a few minutes.
Well, I mean, I think I absolutely adored it. But who couldn't fall in love with it after the ending of episode 1? When he that moment with Grogu, and you're just like, okay, my heart is completely melted. I'm all in. And as it went, I completely loved every. The only I completely fell in love with it, and I did only have one criticism through the whole thing, which was I need to see more connectivity to the prequels and the Clone Wars and those themes and visuals, and just a little less of this, the snow, forest, sand, planet iconography of the OT. I just wanted more PT and Clone Wars era stuff, which is I eventually was starting to get in major doses in season 2. So yeah.
And Book of Boba Fett, when this airs, it will have already come out a couple days ago, so we can't speak to it at all. But the future of Star Wars has never been brighter. How excited are you for what's going forward with Star Wars?
Well, like I was saying before, I'm just so glad to be in this place where the agony of waiting to find out about Vader and what happened to Luke and Han and Leia is over, and now I could just enjoy Star Wars without the agony. Like, I don't need to know how Boba Fett survived. It's not a question that has been tormenting me my entire life, but I'm excited to know. And I have to say that I don't want to. I think there's a lot of hero worship of Dave Filoni, which I think is really unhealthy. A hero worship in any, like, that's why I love The Last Jedi. Hero worship is really unhealthy. Luke is a real person who makes mistakes as he grows older, like I have, and that connects to me. That's why I love that movie. Hero worship repulses me. It's scary. It terrifies me, actually. It terrifies me to the bone. And I love Last Jedi for that. And sorry, what was the question? Because I'm bringing this back to.
Just excited for the future of Star Wars.
Yeah, but why am I on this hero worship? Why did I go on this tangent? Oh, excited for where it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, so Dave Filoni, that whole thing in fandom, but what I think needs to be emphasized or talked about more in fandom on a large scale, not just fandom but pulp culture, is realizing with respect what a wonderful thing George Lucas did by taking 10 years to train someone, and to do it right so that they know what's important to the core of the soul of Star Wars, which is George Lucas's soul, really, because it's his. And I think I don't want to compare the TV world that Dave Filoni is involved in heavily to the sequel trilogy, because I think I love them both and there's value in both. But I think
it's not fair just because they're both Star Wars, but they're the way they're handled is they're very different entities. They're very different.
But I think what shines through with the TV world is that Jon Favreau, who's always loved Lucas and obviously knows what he's doing, kickstarting the MCU and all his other great successes, was he had the humility to say, Dave, you're working on this with me because I respect George and how George trained you. And they're like Paul and John. They're like John Lennon and Paul McCartney. The Favreau brings the know-how about movies in general, and then Filoni brings the know-how about from Lucas. And I think what we need to do is just respect what Lucas did, which was to train someone. And so it's not worshiping Dave Filoni as a person. It's with humility, respecting that the artist who created this trained someone. And I think there's something a little that's working better because of that. Because of the training.
Definitely. And those two together, we'll never get, we won't see another George Lucas maybe ever in our lifetimes, but you put those two together, certain people together, and like you said, Favreau has know-how, like the volume which they're shooting on, stemmed from early George Lucas stuff, but Jon Favreau kind of spearheaded that, right? With obviously with a huge crew of people, but based on his workings in the past, then Filoni can deal with little things. So like not little things, but so yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely it. But we're going to wrap it up right now. We've run out of time on this day. We're going to end it with a couple of songs of yours we're going to play so everybody listening can stick around and listen to those. But Din, thanks for joining me today. And where can everybody find you and listen to you at?
Okay, well, my little label, Marilyn in Music, has asked me to put Spotify front and center to get people there. So find F-105 on Spotify, please follow and listen and like. And then for the social networks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, all that stuff, it's at F-105 Music.
Awesome. Make sure you listen to Spotify. I'm going to go on Spotify right now, but you can keep listening right here. You can listen to this podcast also on Spotify. And if you keep listening, we're going to play Desert Planet. But first, here it is. We're going to start the song. We're going to play the song first that starts our podcast every week. This is Rebel Girl by F-105.
Are all around. She says it's easier to keep her head down. She looks at you strange when you say this hoe. That's how rebellions work, don't you know?
scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.